Hey, Richard Mellor here, Facts for Working People. I want to say a couple of things. As I told you before in an earlier video, I sort of can't write very easily, but I did write something this morning. I was so upset about the meeting that Trump had with the building trades leaders, and just to watch them grovel and kiss his butt and sit around there with Trump. They're happy about the TPP, of course, but that's beside the point. And so that was sort of, I had to say something about that. And then his freezing of federal employment. He's signed a freeze on federal employment. So I went to the AFSCME website, which is my former union, and AFGE, which is the American Federation of Government Employees that represents federal employees. Of course, the comments from them was also just as nauseating. Wouldn't bother anybody. And so I wanted to say a couple of other things that I couldn't sort of get into there, I couldn't write much more about this whole situation. Interestingly enough, the one thing, the building trades are all hoping for jobs, you see, because with the federal employment, if they freeze it, that doesn't mean they're going to freeze federal employment through contractors. That doesn't mean contractors are not going to get jobs and they'll hire union workers for the building trades, because we had that issue where I worked. I was a public sector worker for a water utility, and we were always in a struggle, as I mentioned in the article, always in the struggle because the building trades would side with the contractors and would be in a competition for work. My place, like most public boards, the private business, private contractors go to these places, get their snouts in the public trough so that they can get some taxpayer money, some ratepayer money, or what have you. We always argued, of course, that everybody should be public sector organised and public union. And so I wanted to say a couple of things about that. Incidentally, with federal, as I mentioned in the article, on the federal freeze, they're not freezing defence or national security employees. So when they want to break strikes, when they want to spy on you, when they want to bomb other workers, or actually use some of the weapons or technology they through national defence industry against American workers, which they will in the future, include many of those that will be angry at Trump by then. There'll be plenty of people to do that. So. And then just the last thing about that meeting was that, you see, they asked him about, they said in the media it was a little sticking point. That's the Davis-Bacon Act. That's where workers on federally funded projects are covered by the Davis-Bacon law. That means that they must get prevailing wage. Of course, as prevailing wage goes down, then so does their wages. But what it is really is it's a means of the union leaders don't have to organise anybody. So they don't have to get off their butts. They can just sit there, and the guy will get, or woman, or whoever it is. If they're non-union, they'll get they'll get prevailing wage in the area if they're union. So. Anyway, I wanted to say that about that. And then the other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was this march. Because you see, the question of the union leadership, I understand people that are not in unions don't see them as a force at all. But we had this march that just occurred rather. We had 750,000 people in LA, 500,000. 250,000 in Chicago. I think there was 100,000 in San Francisco, maybe Oakland 60 or 100,000, which is huge. New York City 450,000. We had probably more than 2 million people came out for the Women's March. This is overwhelmingly a positive thing. But then as I'm watching, I didn't watch much, I'll have to be honest with you. Some of the speakers in Washington, D.C., they got up there millionaires. Pop stars. They got, the first two I saw immediately were Scarlett Johansson and what's her name, Madonna. A couple of million. Madonna's probably worth $300-400 million, I would assume. Both Zionists. Scarlett Johansson talking about her child and her daughter and everything else. And I think she works or does film work or advertising work for Israeli companies. I'm sure she doesn't visit Gaza or the West Bank and see what they do to children there. But so I'm looking at that, and I was talking with a buddy today about it too, and we raise it on our blog all the time. Where the hell were the union banners? LA has 800,000 or so workers affiliated to the Central Labour Council there. San Francisco, I'm not sure what it's got anymore, over 100,000. Chicago, 500,000. There's 2 million workers affiliated to the California AFL-CIO. Where were the union banners, right? There should be, union marches. I didn't see any union marches. Where were the demands of the working class there? Okay, so it was a very positive thing, of course, this march, because going to it will be many workers and middle class women and middle class people and working class people who have never got involved in anything in their lives. This guy is going to move people, because there's nasty crap going to happen here, and he's going to force the working class into action. But why weren't they there? Well, where the goddamn are the union leaders? They're in there meeting with him, kissing his butt here, as Sanders is now, kissing his butt in this meeting. And so the thing is that why the union leaders are not there is because what would they say? They didn't speak. Union leaders should have been speaking. Why won't they do that? They can't do that. They can't do that because their whole view of the world is to support capitalism, to support the market, and support the employers. That's their view of the world. So they don't want to anger Trump. He might screw the building trades leaders as well. And then you've got the others, the public sector. Where were they all? They can organise those $15 an hour things. Where were the official union banners? The problem is the union leaders cannot and will not do that, because to organise, to mobilise the power of workers will from their point of view, can only lead to chaos. And so, but the tragedy of it is, of course, a lot of new people would have seen this power. A lot of new people would have the demands of the working class, which is most of us, no matter whether you're gay, straight, black, white, or anything else. The demands of the working class are very similar. We want to eat, we want housing, we want education, and everything else. This is what can unite us. So that's a tragedy that they weren't there, but it's conscious from the trade union leaders' point of view. And you can see what he's doing in the meeting with the building trades and attacking the public sector is he's dividing us. He's dividing us along public sector and private sector lines. That's what the team concept does as well. Everything they do attempts to divide us. Racism, sexual, gender discrimination, there's all of those complications around those issues. But ultimately the reason they apply them is to divide us, men and women and what have you. It's a sad thing. Could you imagine if the unions turned out, and they could, if the unions had taken that the union leadership had taken that by and there's plenty of women in the trade union movement. AFSCME is over 50% women, if I recall, my former union. And the US, these fresh people would have seen this potential power. If the union leadership organised a fight, they would see a fight back. People would flock into the unions. That's exactly why they don't do it. People flocked into the unions from 1930 to 1945, 1940, 1942. You had the big strikes in the 30s, the 3 general strikes, the factory occupations, the AFL gained members, the CIO gained members. So you had people flock in there, and that's what would happen here, and that's why they don't do it, because they're wedded to capitalism, they're wedded to the market. They're incapable of mobilizing people. So what do? We have to recognize, and unfortunately, this is something the left doesn't do. So many of them ignore the role of the leadership, not just in their language. The union must this, the union must that, but also where they're active in unions. One guy told me, who has a comrade, a new young fella in a union, I asked him about, is he helping them is in a group, one of these groups, is he helping them to build opposition caucus in there? He said, no, we're building the Revolutionary Party. That's just an excuse for doing nothing. What, are the workers all going to flock to you when they read the book? You know? So the question is, it's fantasy to think that we can build a movement and that the Labour leadership are not going to play a role, and the unions, they're not going to play a role. There's 12 million people in them. And when we're in the unions, people like myself and other activists, you cannot fight back without openly challenging, campaigning against the collaboration and the disastrous policies of our leadership, of the leadership of the trade unions. You cannot avoid a conflict with them, and unfortunately that's what happens. But if you get Somebody once said to me, what's the point of getting into it with the trade union leaders? And I'm not talking about name calling or anything else. She said to me, well, the members aren't there. Well, part and parcel of getting them there is them seeing there's an element in their local that is fighting back. There's an element in their Central Labour Council that is fighting back. That's part and parcel of helping to draw them around a programme that's not concessionary, that takes on the capitalist offensive, and that's part and parcel of getting workers involved. Why would they go to a union meeting when if there's nobody there? You know, they will come, and part and parcel of not fighting back is that you cannot possibly build that way. You have to build opposition caucuses. We have to confront them openly. We have to challenge their policies, and that's the way. And build the caucuses in the workplace. In the workplace, the Labour bureaucracy has less influence. After work, we used to do that. So the thing is, we have to recognise that we cannot change the trade union movement without a struggle against the trade union leadership openly. They will not allow it, and also that struggle will help to draw people into the trade union movement itself. One or two victories, you would see a transformation. And unfortunately, there's thousands of people, even in my own local, and I know some of them are going to watch this. I know there's people that don't agree. You know, in every union there's opportunists. There's some opportunists in there right now. I saw them when I was there. That's another thing. And that's the problem of the membership. You're not active. The crap floats to the top, okay? And there's opportunists in there. We had them as well. We shut them down generally when we were in our local, when I was active with others in my local. But I know there's people in there that they want to change policy, they don't like the policy, but they will not engage in a struggle openly for it. I told one of them, I said, look, my department, which is an important department, the maintenance department, I said, there's discontent in there. There's a lot of discontent. I said, if you put something out, they don't put news on, they don't agitate. This is the way, this is how you draw people in, but it means you're going to not be popular you're going to have to be faced with an open struggle, but you have to do it. So these were just a couple of things I wanted to say, and I was just looking at some of the comments that were made yesterday in that meeting. McCarran, who's the head of the Carpenters, used to be on the executive board of Tudor Saliba here, which was one of the, I don't know if he still is, a big company, construction company. He said that Trump's inaugural speech hit home for the people who've been hurting. They ignored all the other crap he said. They gave this man credibility. We have a common bond with the president, says Sean McGarvey, the president of the building trades in North America. A common bond. What? Because he even says we're in the same industry. This is to try and protect those few jobs that they have, no matter what happens to the rest of the working class or what happens to the rest of the trade union movement. It's a very, very narrow, myopic view, and it's led to the crisis we're in now. This is AFGE. All Americans should be outraged that President Trump is putting federal programs and funneling their taxpayer dollars into the hands of less regulated private companies who answer to their corporate shareholders and not the American people. I mean, come on, how many times have we heard this crap? You know, it's disgraceful. They're criminal. Is what they are. The leadership of organised labour is criminal, and we've got to change them. We've got to, those of you in unions, you've got to openly campaign against them, because you know what? We're going to start from nothing again. We're going to start from nothing. They're trying to take the forepersons out of my local, I can see, where they've always tried, a crucial element. If we don't, we won't have any unions at all if things keep going, and we'll be starting from even a lower level. So these are some of the things I wanted to add to that little piece I hope I'm going to put up today. So thanks a lot. Richard Mellor, Facts for Working People. And as I say every time, people in trade unions, we have these phone conferences. You want to discuss your activity in them, how we can help you fight back. We've got some experience. You've got experience. We'd like to discuss those, help you, and we'll bring other trade unionists in. Give us a call or send us an email rather, and we'll see about if you'd like to join our phone conferences, even if it's just on a special subject for you, for your workplace or something like that. So check out the blog, we know what's up.blogspot.com. Thanks.